भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयं उदीरयेत्। श्रीन्वतां स्वकता कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः उदयन्तस्तो हि अभद्राणि विदुनोति शतां नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 13, verses 7 and 8. Chapter 13, titled The Dynasty of Maharaja Nimi. Verse 7. Gandhavastu sutaddeham nidaya muni sattama samapte satrayage cha devan uchuhu samagatan. गंधवस्तु सुतद्देहं निधायामुनि सत्तमा समाप्ते सत्र यागे च देवान उचुहु समागतान. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. During the performance of Yajna, the body relinquished by Maharaja Nimi was preserved in fragrant substances, and at the end of Satya Yuga, at the end of Satra Yaga, the great saints and Brahmanas made the following request to all the demigods assembled there. Text 8. Rajno jivatu dehoyam prasanna prabhavo yadi tatetyukte nimi praha ma bhun me deha bandhanam. Rajno jivatu dehoyam prasanna prabhavo yadi तत्ते युक्ते निमि प्राहा ma boon me deha bandhanam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If you are satisfied with this sacrifice and if you are actually able to do so, kindly bring Maharaja Nimi back to life in this body. The demigod said yes to this request by the sages, but Maharaja Nimi said, please don't imprison me again in a material body. The demigods are in a position many times higher than that of human beings. Therefore, although the great saints and sages were also powerful Brahmanas, they requested the demigods to revive Maharaja Nimi's body, which had been preserved in various perfumed bombs. One should not think that the demigods are powerful only in enjoying the senses. They are also powerful in such deeds as bringing life back to a dead body. There are many similar instances in the Vedic literature. For example, according to the history of Savitri and Satyavan, Satyavan died and was being taken away by Yamaraja, but on the request of his wife Savitri, Satyavan was revived in the same body. This is an important fact about the power of demigods. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti वेदांत स्वामी इतनामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. I like to seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas and thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. Please forgive me for any shortcomings. Today I am reading the verse summary prepared by His Grace Shama Mohini Devi Dasi. So we are in a chapter 13, the dynasty of Maharaja Nimi. So this chapter describes the dynasty in which the great and learned scholar Janaka was born. This is the dynasty of Maharaja Nimi, who is said to have been son of Ikshvaku. So when Maharaja Nimi began performing great sacrifices, he appointed Vashishta to be a chief priest. But Vasishtha refused, for he had already agreed to be priest in performing a yajna for Lord Indra. Vasishtha therefore requested Maharaja Nimi to wait until Lord Indra's sacrifice was finished. But Maharaja Nimi did not wait. He thought life is very short, so there is no need to wait. He therefore appointed another priest to perform the yajna. Vasishtha was very angry at King Nimi and cursed him, saying, "May your body fall down." Cursed in that way, Maharaja Nimi also became very angry and retaliated by saying, "May your body also fall down." As a result of this cursing and counter cursing, both of them died. After this incident, Vasishtha took birth again, begotten by Mitra and Varuna, who were agitated by Urvasi. So the priests who were engaged in the sacrifice of for King Nimi preserved Nimi's body in fragrant chemicals. When the sacrifice was over, the priest prayed for Nimi's life to all the demigods who had come to the arena of Yajna. But Nimi refused to take birth again in a material body because he considered the material body obnoxious. So I think these are the uh, few summary of few verses, in this chapter so far. And coming to the text 7 and 8, which are read today, text 7 describes an important event that occurred during the performance of Satra Yuga, Satra Yajna, a great sacrifice initiated by Maharaja Nimi, a king in the dynasty of Ikshvaku. During this sacrifice, Maharaja Nimi relinquished his body due to the curse exchanged by the sage Vasishtha. However, Nimi's body was not discarded immediately, but was preserved by the sages and Brahmanas who are performing the yajna. They used fragrant substances and special chemicals to keep his body intact. Once the Satrayaga was completed, the sages and Brahmanas who held Nimi in high regard made a request to the demigods who had gathered at the sacrificial arena. They prayed to the demigod to restore Nimi's life so that he could continue ruling and guiding his people. This request reflects the deep respect and value the sages placed on Nimi's leadership and wisdom. However, despite the prayers and efforts of the sages and Brahmanas, Maharaja Nimi declined to re enter a material body, considering it to be an obstruction to spiritual progress. His refusal to return to a material existence demonstrated his deep detachment from worldly affairs and his advanced spiritual understanding. Instead, the great sages used mystical methods to churn Nimi's preserved body, from which King Janaka, a highly revered and spiritually enlightened monarch, was born. So, this verse highlights several themes: the power of Brahmanical rituals and prayers, the importance of saintly kings like Nimi, and the spiritual detachment that led Nimi to renounce material life even when offered a second chance to return. In Vedic culture, Brahmanical rituals, yajnas, are highly significant as they are believed to invoke the blessings of the demigods and create harmony between the material and spiritual realms. The sages and Brahmanas in this verse perform rituals with such precision that they can preserve a body and even make requests to the demigods to bring person back to life. This shows the immense spiritual potency of the Brahmanas who thought, who through their purity and devotion are able to directly communicate with higher power. The yajna Satrayaga conducted was not just ritual for material benefits, but a spiritual act aimed at maintaining cosmic order and pleasing the demigods. The power of rituals and prayers is underscored by the fact that demigods listened to Brahmanas, were ready to grant their request to restore Maharaja Nimi's life. This illustrates that in the Vedic worldview, the relationship between humans, sages, and demigods is interdependent, facilitated by the Brahmanical class, whose spiritual purity enables them to bridge the material and spiritual realms. Now, kings like Maharaja Nimi, who are also saintly, Rajarshis, are considered crucial for the welfare of their subjects and the kingdom. Such kings embody the ideal dharma, righteousness, and the governance according to spiritual principles. Nimi's role as a righteous and spiritually inclined monarch is so important that the sages desired his return to life, indicating the kingship in Vedic culture was not merely political but had a deep moral and spiritual responsibility. We can see that there is a vast difference between Vedic times and Kali Yuga. Saintly kings like Nimi were considered protectors not only for their subjects' material welfare but also their spiritual progress. Their rule ensured that society remained aligned with dharma, enabling their subjects to perform their religious duties, engage in yajnas, and live in peace and prosperity. This theme emphasized that leadership in Vedic society was intertwined and spiritual with spiritual wisdom. And Nimi's presence as a ruler was vital for maintaining that order. One of the most striking aspects of this verse is Maharaja Nimi's spiritual detachment. Despite being offered the opportunity to return to his body and continue his rule, Nimi refuses, considering the material body to be an obstacle to spiritual advancement. This highlights the Vedic ideal vairagya, detachment, and the understanding that material existence is temporary and filled with suffering, dukkha. Maharaja Nimi's refusal to accept another material body reflects his high level of spiritual realization. His detachment indicates that he has transcended the desire for worldly power, pleasure, and even royal responsibilities, viewing the body and material life as burdens that bind the soul to the cycle of birth and death, samsara. This renunciation underscored the value placed on spiritual liberation, moksha, in Vedic philosophy, where the ultimate goal is to break free from material entanglement and realize one's eternal nature as a servant of the God. The fact that Nimi chose not to return to the material world, even when requested by the demigods and sages, is an exemplary act of renunciation. It reflects the teaching that true spiritual progress involves detaching oneself from the illusions of material existence and aspiring for higher spiritual reality. In Vedic understanding, life and death are not seen as absolute ends. Death is merely a transition from one form of existence to another, with the soul continuing its journey based on its karma, actions, and desires. The demigods have the power to intervene in this process. As we can see in this example, yet the ultimate goal of life is to continue living in a material body. Yeah, ultimate goal of life is not to continue living in material body, but to transcend the three modes of material nature and be situated in prema bhakti, unlimited, uninterrupted, unmotivated, unconditional devotional service. The teachings and events described here, through rooted in Vedic times with profound philosophy, can have meaningful practical applications even in the Kali Yuga, the present age, which is characterized by spiritual degradation, conflicts, short lifespans, etc. In Kali Yuga, people are heavily attached to material possessions, wealth, fame, and bodily pleasures. This attachment often leads to stress, anxiety, dissatisfaction, because the material world is temporary and is full of suffering. While it is unrealistic to completely renounce material life for most people today, balancing material duties with spiritual practices like meditation, chanting, or engaging in devotional service can cultivate inner fulfillment and reduce dependency on external source of happiness. Because true happiness comes from within, we just need to be able to make that connection. There are a lot of distractions and temptations in Kali Yuga. It is overwhelming and it is making it difficult for people to pursue spiritual goals or realize the true nature of the soul when, again, we are so distracted by the material gadgets, popularity, unfortunate lack of empathy, as well, which has given rise to disconnect and desensitization. But there is a way to reconnect by engaging in sadhana, spiritual practices like chanting the holy names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Studying Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and serving selflessly with a caring disposition can gradually awaken our spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness. Many people doubt the existence of a God or a higher power or the effectiveness of prayer. The concept of divine intervention can seem distant or unrealistic. But as we can see, not only in this example by prayers of demigods, but in the many other passages, sincere prayers and devotion can bring divine assistance in times of need. In moral life, developing a habit of prayer and sincere devotion, whether through simple gratitude, requesting guidance, or seeking inner strength, can create a spiritual connection that transcends material limitation. Many people today find peace, comfort, and even resolution to problems through practices of prayers, meditation, or offering devotional service, bhakti to the Lord. We need to understand that sincere prayer is not a business transaction. I offer prayers if I am blessed with. No, Lord is in our heart and He knows what we want, what we wish for, and better yet, what we need. Faith is something that can give us so much strength, but something that we at times take for granted. Despite the difficulties of Kali Yuga, the path of bhakti and spiritual practice offers hope and a way connect with a higher truth. So always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. So in summary, today verse 7, talks about, during the performance of Yajna, body relinquished by Maharaj Nimi was preserved by, sages in fragrant substances. And at the end of, Satrayaga, great saints and Brahmanas made a request to demigods, please kindly bring Maharaj Nimi back to the life in this body. And the demigods, said yes to that request, by the sages. But Maharaja Nimi said, please don't imprison me again in the material body. So with that, we can conclude today's Srimad Bhagavatam morning session. We discussed the verses 7 and 8 today. Vancha kalpatarubhascha krupa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna everyone. Thank you. Good day.